evening, ma'am.
Hi, you can call me Bharti.
Hi, Bharti. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
All well, all well. So we're just gonna start the event
Which
now.
part of
And
the which part of the world are you in? Which part of India are you in? Delhi?
no, I'm in Jaipur.
I see, I see. So I'm trying to figure out if I can join from my laptop instead of my phone. Is that possible?
I don't
Because
think
I
so that'll be
don't use.
possible.
Okay, cool. Then I'll stick with my phone. I don't mind at all. I was just curious. So
All right, all
let's.
right. So for the
Yes.
viewers, let me give an introduction. So today we
Yeah.
are gonna speak with Miss Bharati Chaturvedi. Ma'am is the founder of an NGO based in Delhi called Chintan, and ma'am's an environmentalist. So, ma'am, coming to the questions, Bharti, what do you think, as a Gen Z, as a millennial, I would like to ask, what does it mean to be an environmentalist?
So
To be honest,
before I answer that, I'm going to plug in my phone, um, and so I'm going to ask for 1 minute of your
all right,
indulgence. Yeah, okay. I just have
no problem.
nothing fits in.
Sure.
I have this very tiny home office in which I have to fit myself, my chair, my books, my laptop, but also a large number of things which I need to charge, and that's, as you can imagine, a challenge. So give me just 2 minutes.
No problem, not at all.
Not even two. Not even two. This thing's got unplugged. I plugged it several minutes before our time. So so apologies for that. Apologies. This is life.
Not at
So
all,
yes,
ma'am.
yes, please.
So, I'll
Your
repeat my
question.
question. What does this mean? Like, what exactly is being an environmentalist? To be honest, everybody, like, whoever I ask, everybody's like, oh, those activists, they talk about climate change and everything. So I really want to know, like, what exactly, environmentalist means.
I think environmentalist is a very broad label. It wasn't
Yeah,
like this earlier, but today, it's a broad environmentalist, and it's a broad label that people used, to wear their politics on their sleeves, which is good because clearly saying what they backed for, and it's pretty much it's often used as a way to say that I believe in the broad ideas of what environment should be and I want to protect it. So you could have your neighborhood, and mostly you could have your neighborhood, you know you know people saying I'm an environmentalist. What it means is that I might sign up. It can mean many things. It could be that I might sign a petition. I will fight with you if you cut a tree. It could mean that I don't use plastics. It could also mean that that's what I do. That's my job. I go every morning. I go to court and I fight environmental cases. Or it could mean any of those things. It's a really broad thing. But I'll tell you what it means for me. For me, it means that I live this word. So my job is that
yeah,
I look at a couple of environmental issues at Chintan, which is the nonprofit that I work with, and I try to deep dive into them and find solutions. And but I also don't forget, on the other hand, that I also need to walk the talk. So I'm
yeah.
constantly finding ways of being lighter on the planet.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. I
Yes.
could. I thought like you paused for a minute. So,
No, no, no. I just
the
stopped. Yes.
No problem. So the other thing, if you could tell the viewers what exactly is your non-profit organization about, like Chintan, and how does it benefit, opening an environmental, eco-friendly, or something to do with Chintan, like how does it benefit the people, the country?
So, Chintan means another way of thinking. And the reason I started Chintan was long ago.
I mean, I
I
love the name Chintan. It's a very
what?
catchy name. I love the name Chintan. It's a very
Thank
catchy
you. I
name.
can't take any credit for it because I'm really bad at names. And I
Okay.
decided to start an NGO because I just couldn't find a job that was letting me work on environmental issues. And everywhere I went, they would say, yeah, come, 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 come. And we'll let you do whatever you want. And just when I was about to sign, they'd say, we would rather that you work on, forestry. And the thing was, I, I'm not against working on forestry, but at that point, nobody was working on urban issues, and I wanted to work on urban environmental issues. And everywhere I went for a job, I couldn't find the job that I wanted. And I got a job in a really plush donor agency, and it paid me really good money. But and I was very young, and I didn't stick there very long because I almost died of boredom. And my boss really had no interest in any of the goods that I cared about. He didn't really care. I mean, he was using as much plastic as he liked, and he
Yeah.
just didn't care about any of the things that he was, and I found it very depressing, actually. And I mean, it was a learning experience, but it wasn't an enriching learning experience. And so and I would go to work at 6:30 in the morning because our office was a fancy little place which never closed. In the sense, everybody left, but there was
Yeah.
security and all. So I would go at about 6:30 in the morning, and and also they had really nice laptops and all of that. And so I started
Which
registering
year?
Chintan.
Which year?
These were the 90s, the late
Oh,
90s.
wonderful.
And so then I also had a laptop at home, but I just would go there and I would start, I would just sit there for a couple of hours and think about Chintan. And it really motivated me because I knew that if I, if I, if I didn't do it, then I would be stuck in yet another terrible job like the one I had with with very little camaraderie and a boss who didn't give a damn about anything. It was so depressing. So I set up Chintan, and I couldn't think of a name, but I had all my board members. And so one of my
Yeah.
board members said, what happened? You've talked about this and all. What happened to you? And I said, I don't have a name. So he said, okay, come to my house. And I went to his house, and he
Yeah.
opened Menaka Gandhi's book of names. And I think he just had children. And I'd never seen that book, and it didn't occur to me that I should use it. And and I think when you're that young, you're in your 20s, you're just you're wondering what you should do with your life. You don't know a lot of things. And he said, okay, okay, okay. And we randomly opened it, and he said, Chintan. And we said, yeah, okay, fine. He said, just close it and register it now. And the idea fitted really well. And what we do in Chintan is we say, how do you find solutions that reduce your consumption, but that are sustainable and equitable? Which means that while people like
Yeah.
us, or at least speaking of myself, we consume so much electricity. If it's, we don't like the air, we plug in the air purifier at night, which takes in electricity.
Yeah.
We eat really well. If you want to travel, we have ways of traveling. We have access to healthcare. But a lot of our country, lives really poorly. And talking of cities, 40% of the people live in slums.
Yeah.
And they don't have these, if the air is lousy, they have to breathe it, you see. And so what I found really terrible was that neither were we looking at sustainability, and we were moving away from sustainability, but the poor were continuing to bear the brunt of it. So I
Yeah.
started working on waste, and nobody really worked on waste. And I started then working with waste pickers. And I said, why do these really poor people have to stand in this trash? And let me understand this problem. So I did a survey. And many of the people I surveyed then, we still work with, and they are leaders today. And I got money to do this survey from, an agency. And I was shocked by what I found. And then I built a team up, and I said, okay, how do you address it? Let's find ways to do jobs. Let's understand what jobs these people can get. Then we started a program with children, and we said, what is this rubbish? The laws aren't working well. What's wrong with the laws? So we analyzed those, and till date we've modified and improved up to 7 policies and laws in the country. And then we started doing all kinds of things, but then we cut it down. And so today we work on circular economy, which is really, how does a resource that you've mined or extracted in some way, how do you keep it going? And how do you stop extraction and design and use in ways that you need less? But we've also, till date, we worked with 10,000 children almost and got them out of picking trash, put them in schools. We've created a couple of thousand jobs. We have, for example, do things like work in the IIT Delhi, which is zero waste as a campus because of us. We've done New Delhi railway station, but we do a lot of waste handling, which we make waste pickers do, and we train them how to do it well. And we run a lovely service if you're in the NCR called Pick My Trash. So you call us, and once a month we'll come and pick up all your colony's electronic waste and make sure it's recycled safely. And this is run by 2 young waste picker men. And one of them, when he was 8 years old, he was a doorstep collector. He was a child laborer, basically, who now works with us, and we incubate him to run this startup. So I urge you to use it. So basically what we did, we put the idea on the mainstream that when you want an environmental solution in India, you have to look at human beings also. In India, you can't ignore human beings. And that's also the work we do on our air pollution work. If you follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, that's where we are.
So what exactly do you suggest to viewers, what waste management can they do at home? Like starting from to be honest, like me as a lady and using pads, like it's so harmful. So what could be done? Like how can we shift, or, what can be done to it?
So I think the first step is to figure out, spend some time. It's a pain, but do it. Look at what you're discarding. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised to see that it's not just sanitary napkins that you're throwing away. Of course, you should try to move to menstrual cups because you can wash them. On the other hand, I don't, when people spend a lot of time reporting on the field, from villages, then that's not something they can do. But I think most of us in urban India can actually use these kinds of new products. But even if you look at what you eat, and I think eating is really important because so much of what you eat is imported, so much what you eat is wasted. So something as simple as a cauliflower, a gobi, the throwing away chunks of that stem, right? I mean, all of us do it, but you can just grate it and put it into a soup or put it into a pasta, which I do quite a lot. And so I think we have to do things we don't do. I'm not a person who normally cooks, but I make myself go to the kitchen to understand how not to waste a potato peel. You just wash the damn thing, and I just throw it into, it's actually quite nice if you saute it and put it in. It becomes quite crisp if you put it in the oven. It's a nice thing to munch on, with a little mirchi. It's really yummy. And I'm a fussy eater. I don't like to eat unhealthy food. I'm a vegan. I used to love meat, but I gave it all up. It took me a long time, but I gave it up. And I try to be vegan. If I'm in a place where somebody really poor has given me chai in a juggi, then I'll drink the chai with the doodh. I'm not fussy, but I prefer not to. And all these are things.
But
so
do you
food
think,
is what?
Coming to the vegan, sorry, I'm so sorry. Coming to the
No.
So what do you think? What's the link between the personal action and being being part of a larger universe, as what you stated?
I think personal action is your demonstration that you're not going to be a hypocrite, right? So I always say, personally, look at your food and look at your travel and look at your plastics and compost at home, right? And there's no need to give lots of presents to people. And there's no need to have lots of presents from people. I mean, I'm obviously, and you don't need so many things. You really don't need so many pairs of boots in the winter. So I'm always saying fight fashion. Um, I mean, I love good clothes, and it's a challenge for me to fight fashion, but I do that. But so I think the link is that between if you're going to have a really if you're going to go for a march against climate change and you are going to go in your expensive SUV, I think it says that you're not even willing to make the sacrifice which the planet needs. And today the planet, you've seen this in Uttaranchal, right, at the rainy village, the recent disaster that we saw, the entire dam wiped out, Tapovan completely devastated. These things are, of course, there's climate change, but it's exacerbated by our model of our lifestyles, which the rich want, particularly. Because if we didn't have this kind of energy need, part of that is fueled by what we want. I mean, when we say, oh, when I tell people, or at least my own family, that we're not going to put up these LED lights on Diwali, are you nuts? I mean, just put a few diyas and switch on our regular lights in every room. Because in my family they say Lakshmi nahi aayegi if you don't switch on all the lights. So I
That's
say, okay, yeah. So I say, well, Lakshmi's been coming to our homes for a long time, and that of our parents and our grandparents. So let's not put these lights, because after all, even if it's just one day, it is energy, and energy in most of our cities doesn't come from clean sources. It comes from coal-based fire plants, and that's the source of energy. If you're going to use it, you're going to destroy the environment. You have to use less. Otherwise, kids who are in villages are never going to, I mean, then they have needs also. They need to study. So I think we have to make personal sacrifices so that we prepare ourselves. And I think the big thing about community, I believe, is that we don't talk enough to people who are not like us. And even if they're like us, we don't talk to them if we're not introduced, if we don't, somehow if you don't go to the same gym, or and I think if you want to make changes, you have to do two big things. One is, of course, not be a hypocrite, but the other thing is that you need to go out, you need to understand where you live, whatever colony it is. I mean, walk in it, see who's the mochi, look at people, talk to your neighbors. I used to live in a lovely government colony, and one of these senior government officers, one day I was coming back from Chintan, and he said, come here, and we don't have a directory, and you need to make a directory. And I thought, this person, he's such a crazy coot. How am I going to make a directory? I don't know a soul. So I told him I only know 5 people. And he says, well, then knock at the doors. And I thought, man, like, he's totally lost it. But anyway, I said, anyway, I'll do it. It just sounds like a great adventure. And I did it. And I made friends for life. But the thing is, we transformed our area. We just became so much greener after that. But because we did things together. So I believe that you have to build community. You have to build community. You have to learn to talk to old people who are grouchy and who are going to tick you off, particularly your generation. You have to talk to young people who are much younger than you, who will tell you that, oh, when you were young, you partied and all that, and now you want us to be careful. What's wrong with you? You're a hypocrite. You have to do all that. And you have to include people who serve you, people who cook for you, people who clean for you, the mochi. You have to include all these people. And I really believe that environmentalism at a community level is, you have to break your teeth there. You have to make your community a circular community. You have to make it a zero waste community. You have to involve people. And I'm happy to talk to people who want to do that. I'm happy to guide you through after this in the
So
future.
what's the approach exactly? Like what's the approach you take when you're talking to the generation older to us, like somebody who's like 60, 70, and a person who's like 8 or 9? Like, how do you actually go about it?
So, anyone who's 60 or 70 or 80, I know that they're probably, they're probably cranky, especially if they're 70 or 80. But they're tough, they're very tough people. They ask really tough questions. they turn around and they say,
Yeah.
अच्छा तो आप ये jacket पहने हैं, do you think it's biodegradable? So of course the jacket I'm wearing, which is this, it's not biodegradable.
Exactly.
It's my bird watching jacket. It's my everything jacket. I got it for birding. The color I got for birding, but I also sleep in it if it's very cold.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, because I don't try. I try not to heat my room at night. Only when it's very cold do I do it in the day. So then I need to wear a jacket to sleep. But the thing is that I'm mindful of the fact that and you should be also, they're going to really take up a lot of time and ask you
Yeah.
questions that you think are quite personal. I mean, it's nobody's business who you live with. But if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. You just laugh later. But about younger
Yeah.
people, I find that there's a lot to learn from younger people. Not so much from a 5-year-old as much as from someone who's 20 and 21, because I really enjoy speaking with people like that. I've always come back better educated. As an 8-year-old, you talk to them, they have ideas, they learn things. You
Yeah.
negotiate with them, you make them your ambassadors, basically. You can't do that with old people.
So do you have any younger kids on your team as well?
In Chintan, we have a lot of young people in their early 20s and their mid 20s. We have a lot, and that's actually how I often work with. That's kind of my inroad into young people. I mean, my friends have children. I don't have kids, but my friends have kids, and a lot of the Chintan kids that we work with, who were once space pickers, that's another level of kids as well. And I find that all young people today are really fiercely independent in the way that they think, and they know
Yeah.
what they want to do. And they're not very scared of saying, I love acting and I think I'll just be part of a drama club. And
Yeah.
if you say, how do you plan to earn money, they'll say, well, yeah, whatever. That is obviously a problem, but that doesn't mean that I need to be stressed out. But I also think young people have enormous mental health issues, a huge level of anxiety
Yeah.
across the board. So I think when I engage with people over a medium term, including my own colleagues, I'm kind of mindful that they're more anxious than I ever was, even though my parents were quite tough on me and they really pushed me all the time. They were quite shocked that I became an environmentalist, but they were tough, and it was tough to have tough parents who were saying, okay, what are your scores? Why have you got 1 mark less? What are you going to do?
Yeah. So what do you think being an Indian environmentalist is?
I think Indian environmentalists, we have to really embrace India, and you know what that means. That means that we need to look at all our cities, and I'll talk about cities for a moment.
Yeah.
All our cities are cities of valas. Whether it's the press wala, or whether it's the mochi, or whether it's the doodh wala or the sabzi wala. And our cities are run by the valas of our cities, the
Yeah.
and I think we need to look at them as, how do you include them in solutions. I think firstly that's the biggest thing. I think so I always say that for example, why isn't the mochi given a better place to sit? Because after all, the guy is repairing things, and the repair economy is really important in the era of climate change. You need to repair things. And I think especially your shoes, but even the cell phone repair wala, in all these markets there's always one guy you'll take your electric things to, and you'll say, hey, my blender's not working, will you repair it? And I think we have to
Yeah.
really be grateful for these people, because I've lived in a lot of countries, but I've lived in Poland and I've lived in Pakistan till very
Oh,
recently.
wow. Wonderful.
And you can repair everything in Pakistan like us, but I've lived in Canada, I've lived in countries like that, and it's just impossible to repair anything, because A, they don't manufacture for repair, and B, there are no skills left. Hardly anyone knows how to repair anything. In France, they have this absurd concept called a repair cafe, and they say, please come and spend time and figure out how to repair things, and we'll also help you. And it's so bizarre because in India you just pick it up and you say, "Acha bhaiya, ye theek kar do, bhai kharab ho gaya,"
I
and
feel
people
very
repair
proud that
it.
yeah, I feel very proud that in India we have people who can repair, who have actually the knowledge how to fix the parts.
And that's what I mean by an Indian environmentalist. I think an Indian environmentalist will appreciate what we have, whether it's the mochi or the waste picker or the kabari or the repair wala. And the other big thing about an Indian environmentalist, and we should never forget it, and that even applies for your generation,
Yes,
is that we should not forget that we live in two worlds at the same time. You and I, we're not going to freak out and put it on Instagram if you buy something from a chemist and he gives you a small little, brown paper bag. You go buy, you have a bad headache and he gives you a crocin kapatta in that. It's no big deal. It happens. And these are made by people in their homes. And it's so I think we live in a world where we still have many sustainable practices that are part of our everyday lives, and I think we should strengthen those. There are a lot of countries where that doesn't exist anymore. They're talking about something as simple as a tiffin. I gave someone a tiffin many years ago in Europe, and I said, "Oh, this is just to take stuff to office to eat." And this was quite a lot of years ago in Washington D.C., where I used to live as a student. And she was so freaked out, and she thought it was such a cool piece of design. And then she wrote a whole thing about it and made a newsletter. And I mean, it was almost tragic. I said, "Can you imagine how far?" It's not that they didn't have these things. I said,
yeah,
it's so foolish that they've forgotten all this. And it's like food, right? I mean, if you look at traditional food, people were using watermelon rinds. I mean, we're going to have watermelons in 2 months' time. All those
yeah,
chilkas that we throw, normally people used to make sabzi all over Maharashtra and Rajasthan. I have
exactly.
lots of those recipes. So I think Indian environmentalism is about welcoming back those kinds of things and improving them.
Oh, wonderful. So, what do you think would like younger generation, like what if I want to start an NGO? So what
Yeah.
do I need to be cautious about? Like,
First of all,
and
I'm going to
what
ask
problems
you,
do you face when
why do you want to start it? And I'm not discouraging you. I think the more the merrier. But I have,
yeah,
because first of all, I think what we have to know is um, the effort that it takes to do the right thing is huge. And I don't mean the moral right thing. I mean, you have the way that you file returns, the effort that you have to make. When you have an NGO, you're going to hire somebody. You have to keep them happy because they might not be happy.
yeah,
They might say, "What the hell? Um, I don't like this office, and the tree is, I want the seat with the tree in front." The effort, I think today 50% of my effort goes in not that kind of work. It's not even administrative. It's something else. So I'm like, are you sure, if you're working 10 hours a day, you sure you want to put 4 to 5 of those hours in making people feel motivated and making sure that reports read right, doing that kind of work? So that's one. The other thing is, I also feel that, what about, environment is no longer a thing of its own. It's something that's mainstreamed in all our lives. And I'm speaking to you because you guys are lawyers. And I think, what if every lawyer said, I'll fight like every quarter, I'm open to one environmental case, and I'm going to work with environmentalists so that
yeah,
I don't fight for the wrong charges. I'm going to look at research. I'm going to go to someone who knows their stuff and say, I'm willing to do this, because I think then you contribute more, or you help people understand the law. Not every lawyer would like to fight that case. It might not work for them professionally. Their firms might have a problem. But what about teaching people what is the Water Act? What about telling people that what does it mean if the Uttaranchal High Court says the Ganges and the Yamuna basically have the same rights as a person? What does that mean? So I think we are so ignorant, those of us who are not lawyers, about the law, that, for example, I'm not even sure anyone needs to open a non-profit as much as strengthen existing non-profits and work outside the non-profit framework. Work outside it. Work. Why wouldn't you institutionalize educating lawyers about environmental issues? Why would if I go to court today and I say I want to stop poaching in in a particular forest and I take
Yeah.
stronger action, why should anyone stand up against that? You could stand up and say, what about the forest guards? Give them better equipment. But why would you stand up and try to argue that case? I think that's the space we should go to. And therefore, I feel uh, lawyers in particular should think about whether it's worth opening an NGO or a startup of any other kind vis-a-vis influencing the environmental ecosystem. I think you're uniquely well placed. I don't think you even realize how well placed you are.
Yeah.
And I think that could be such a transformation.
Yeah, so like as the lawyers, they're all going with papers. So many books are there. What suggestion do you give? I mean, to every person, like how to stop wasting and how to shift. Actually, even in the High Court, like Rajasthan High Court, we do not have. Everybody has to take a file. There are like 3 copies of the file we have to pass. So, what solution do you provide for that? So since we have
So I
more
think, yeah, I think what
yeah.
happened this time in the lockdown was very interesting. A lot of the
Yeah, I
government
loved it. I
files
loved it.
got
Yeah,
digitized, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
I think we're moving in that direction, and you should ask for it so that in the next 5, 6 years that does happen. But I would even say we should go beyond just paper. I would say, what do you use for energy? Do you plant exotic plants? I mean, you're talking of Jaipur, for example. Jaipur is a
Yeah,
place which has very specific indigenous plants. Why do you need to plant the kinds of trees you see there now? I mean, Jaipur is, heaven for certain kinds of grasses and slow
yeah,
growing, I mean, desert plants. So I would say let's make campuses or offices climate resilient by planting things that don't take too much water. What about decentralizing all the waste and composting it? What about looking at decent?
uh, your voice is not coming, Bharti.
I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what happened.
it's fine.
So I'm saying that decentralized sewage, I would say push for the paper, but the bigger things are water. So that means decentralized sewage systems, and it means planting things which are climate resilient and native to Jaipur. And that's not very difficult. There are lots of people working on it. My friend Vijay Dasmana, he's doing some work as well, and I can always link you. And so there's that work. And I would also say energy consumption. I mean, how much do air cons run? Can we move to solar? Can we move to on-grid solar, which is always nicer? But solar, and can we do? And Jaipur's in a great position, and REIL is based there. So why don't we make those exceptions and do what we can? But I think larger than that would be, how do you make people think about if you make a new building, what should that building be like? How do you make ledges so sparrows can breed again? You see,
Yeah,
those are the kinds of thoughts. But I would really say, how about making people understand what are the big issues in the environment today? Every day there's a big issue.
exactly. So,
you know
exactly. So, coming to a big issue which was in my mind was the fact that everybody is really praising Tesla and electric cars coming on its way to India. What do you think about that?
So I have a slightly different point of view. Firstly, I'm quite disappointed that it's private transport that's going to get such a bolster from electric vehicles, because, you know, um, many years ago, about 15 years ago, we cleaned out, by the late 90s, really, we cleaned out and got clean fuel and
Yeah.
clean fuel and improved our fuel standards. But we have lousy air today. And the reason we have lousy air is we just have too many vehicles. And the solution is not to have cleaner vehicles and electric vehicles that are private. Our idea is to have more buses. I mean, you can't have a metro.
We lost your voice again. We lost your voice again. Yeah, yeah.
Went off. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So if you
I'm
could
sorry. I
repeat.
think I just have. Yeah. So my point is that we need public transport if we want to
Yeah,
solve both the point of livability and air pollution and climate change. And for that, you need electric buses, and we need a lot of buses. But we really can't allow Tesla to sell these super expensive private cars, first of all, because it doesn't serve the purpose. And we also at the same time need to know how we're going to handle those batteries from electric vehicles, because you don't want
yeah,
it's like, when CFLs came into India, everybody loved them, but everybody forgot that CFLs have a lot of mercury. So when you throw them away, you have these puffs of mercury literally going, and mercury is really toxic, and it's in the air at pretty low temperatures, I mean, it doesn't take much to evaporate it. So it's poisoning us. So I think we shouldn't have the same kind of problem with electric vehicles. Also, to make these kinds of cars, you need mines, and here we are in our scrappage policy, which the budget announced this year. Now that if you involve the current entrepreneurs who are basically
yeah,
taking your old vehicle apart, whether it's a minivan or whether it's a car, and they're feeding that metal into steel foundries, and so you're getting steel back, and that makes more sense. So I really ask whether Tesla is green just because it's an electric vehicle. It still needs large numbers of other kinds of metals, and those come from mines, and we don't need private transport in any part of the world. But Tesla comes from California, and California it tries to do a lot of stuff, but it does a lousy job with public transport. I mean, people will tell you sit in the BART and it's great in San Francisco, but San Francisco is only a dot in California, and the rest of it, people like me who don't like to drive and who don't drive actually very much, we're stuck. Where do we go? It's really tough.
yeah. But with in the pandemic, I mean, after the pandemic, people are scared to travel in buses, and like, what if they catch the virus? And so, how do we, like, remove the mindset of the people? Like, how do we remove that from their mindset? Like, you can be safe if like, what should the government do?
Yeah, I think basically I'm walking now so that I can come to another spot just so that it doesn't happen again. But I think if you're scared to go anywhere, then you have to decide that I'm scared, but I will also then not go and meet my friends. If you're scared about the pandemic and getting sick, then keep it 360. Do it everywhere. Don't party, because I have quite a few friends who say I have no option but to drive, um, uh, but uh, but I have to drive to so and so's house because I haven't seen them in years. And my point is, well, if it's safe to go to their house, then it's safe to sit in the metro. But I understand the fears and I
Yeah,
appreciate them. I mean, I would perhaps also share some of those. And I think we have to learn to walk much more. And I know the air is lousy, but if you walk after 10:30 in the morning, it's less terrible. And I think we just have to learn to walk much more, which means so I've begun to walk much more than I ever did, because basically because you just tend to do something. You go crazy during the pandemic, and you do
yeah,
something. Many people do things. I began to walk, but that also means that you have to organize your life very differently, which means that you can't get so much done. You can't go out too much at night, And if you have to go out at night, you have to join forces with other people so that multiple people are going to share your one vehicle, so you're not driving. And I also have just stopped going to a lot of places. I just say I'm just not going to go now because I can't walk. It's too far away. It's going to take too long. I'm going to be exhausted. Then I can't walk back. So I'm just going to I just say that I'm going to be in this part of town. Who all can I meet? And I try to do
Yeah.
all my socializing on weekends, basically.
Oh, that's so nice. So I
But
think,
it's a pain, and I think we should just wait till we have the confidence to all get into metros. And I think the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to get into metros, hitch lifts. I'm not going to stop driving, but I'm going to combine all these things. And I think we should meet more often in each other's houses. We all live in
yeah,
houses, but we never really we hardly ever meet in each other's houses because we think, oh, we may as well just go out and eat or whatever it is. But I think we should learn to meet at home, meet fewer people. It's
yeah,
easy. Let one person not have to travel and, create pollution.
exactly. So we have few questions from the viewers. I'll just read it out. So the first is, with reference to the recent disaster in Uttarakhand, some believe that deforestation and global warming were the factors that caused the same. Can we consider that the drastic increase of population is the main cause behind the same?
So I would say the main cause for climate change is the drastic increase in consumption. Because
Okay.
when you look at population, the population doesn't consume equally. So, and I'll give you an example that you probably already know, but it's like if you look at the person who comes to your house and sweeps for you or washes the bartans, right? And I mean, presuming that you don't do it yourself, I mean, look at what little consumption theirs is. She'll take your leftovers for lunch, and she'll wear the same clothes several days in the week, and she'll have heavily repaired chappals. So these are people who don't consume. The people who do consume, and they don't even get water, they get like two buckets of water in the whole day, vis-a-vis the middle class in India. And I think we should really see that climate change is an outcome of historically of how the rich in the world have consumed, whether it's the United States and Europe and Canada and Australia, how terribly they've consumed, how much fossil fuel they've burnt and put carbon into the air. But in today's world, and China's rise is thanks to a lot of climate, is carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. But in today's day, the middle class in India, the wealthy in India can't excuse themselves anymore. We
Yeah.
also consume like crazy. You want to go for a holiday, you say, I've had a terrible long year. All 10 of us are going to take a flight and go to wherever you have to go. So we can't excuse ourselves
Yeah.
anymore. So I think of it as consumption. And I want to add there that while climate change was obviously a big reason, but the other reason was that climate change's impacts were worse because of the model of development. We've put all these dams there, and
Yeah.
the dams block the river, and they also create siltation, and they do all kinds of things. So we really have to reconsider how we want our energy and how much energy we want. Because if you want to go on, if every Indian, 1.3 billion Indians, wanted to live like a upper middle class person, you would have to dam every river because you just don't have the energy, and build
Yeah.
only power plant after power plant. So you can't live like that, which means that those who are over consuming, people like us, have to drastically reduce our consumption so that the energy and the other resources can be shared by other people who have nothing almost.
Exactly. So we have another question, ma'am. Um, so as per the Stockholm Convention, the purpose is to eliminate or restrict the production and use of persistent organic pollutants.
Yeah.
Even then, the ozone layer is severely affected and the pollution is still high. Is it only because of poor governance that this has been common nowadays?
I think so. The pops. I mean, I work on the pops, so I'm delighted that somebody else also is interested in it. Now I'm going to sit somewhere else to give you better this thing. So the pops, if I may indulge me. So the pops, what happens with those is these are chemicals like DDT and dioxin and furan and many more have been added.
Yeah.
The original they were called the dirty dozen. So I think, first of all, I think we don't think like scientists. When we make our policies and we make our plans, we forget science sometimes. But when you put a waste to energy plant up, and Delhi has 3 and they're going to get more, then you burn things and you get dioxins, you get persistent organic pollutants that you're supposed to have got rid of. So part of it, your question is that we have forgotten science, and we choose to forget science because science is quite inconvenient sometimes, and we're looking for shortcuts. And in general, the world believes it can conquer things. You can't conquer what science is telling you. And climate change is an exception. Sorry, is an example. And so that is one. And I think the other reason is that governance is poor, but also the pollution control boards in our country. If you just look at Delhi, the most polluted city in the world, our Delhi Pollution Control Committee, as it's called, is understaffed. I mean, 1 year ago, they started hiring 48 people at the entry level. And a year from now, even though I understand it's been COVID, but they've not managed to go to the next step. It took them 16 years to decide what they call service rules in government. So it took them 16 years from 1998 onwards. So how do you expect them? And then, in the peak air pollution, they told all these scientists that you've got to go do the usual NGT cases, do your normal work. Yeah. And then in the night, you have to go and you have to look for, who's burning fires. And in Haryana, it was worse because of avian flu. You're telling the Haryana Pollution Control Board scientists that you go check all these murgi farms. But these are not veterinarians. They don't know what to do. They're running all over that state of Haryana. How does that help? You see, so essentially our governance is terrible, but we are hugely, the example of terrible is that these pollution control boards just aren't pulling up their socks. Yeah. They need to be reprimanded for this. You can't just sit there and say I'm doing this, but I don't have enough people. There's no excuse. Most of these pollution control boards generate a lot of money of their own. Why aren't they using that money for us?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So we have the last question here. As per the Montreal Protocol and Vienna Convention, the Secretariat has laid emphasis on energy efficiency, on refrigeration, air conditioning, as well as functioning of heat pumps. What steps can be taken for smooth functioning of the same?
Well, actually, we've made good steps, as far as some of these things are concerned. So I think that's kind of a positive thing. I think where I always fear is that, when it's not, so this technology that we're in today in 2021 will there'll be better technology in 4 years' time. And I think the point always is, because we're always researching, there's a lot of R&D. And even though the Vienna Convention and the Montreal Protocol have they're actually one of the rare examples of success of a global environmental negotiation. It's one of the only successes of that level. So I think to me, the challenge is that as soon as we come to a new technology, what are we going to do with companies that try to tell you that your old technology is useless, get rid of your old equipment? Because we're seeing that in electronics all the time. I mean, why wouldn't you have a 3-year-old phone? Why wouldn't you have a 5-year-old phone? Why is it that your iPhone becomes really slow when it becomes old? And no matter what you do, it's really slow. You throw out all your apps, it's really slow. So that's planned obsolescence. So I feel that planned obsolescence and technology, whether it's digital technology or energy efficiency, is a huge danger. And I think we have to demand that this is not the way that we want to go ahead. And we should also have the confidence as a population not to have the latest technology. I mean, hello, great. If somebody else is buying a fridge, please let them go to an even more energy efficient fridge. But let me finish out the life of this fridge first.
Yeah.
And I'm just giving you an example of a fridge because that's what you said. But I think the electronics world often exploits technology to make us buy new things, and we shouldn't buy these new things. Although, especially because these are not very polluting, because the technology caught up. This was a successful global negotiation. I mean,
But
the Ramsar Convention has been deeply, it's very iffy, right? You know what the Ramsar Convention is, right? It's that Iranian place called Ramsar, and it protects wetlands which have a lot of value, for example, with bird life and so on. And a lot of the wetlands are unprotected, and it's very difficult to put them on the protection list. In fact, typically wetlands are filled in, and then you build an office on them all over the world, not just here. It's they're seen as a pain rather than as a fabulous gift that nature has given us to absorb carbon and carbon dioxide, and to take in water from flooding, which will obviously increase as climate change, intensifies. So the Ramsar Convention could have been a great tool to fight climate change, but instead it's looked at like as a great pain. And and as people like yourselves who are lawyers, I think you have to fight for these laws not only in letter, but also you have to put on your climate warrior hat. It is almost your national obligation. I mean,
exactly.
how can you be an Indian lawyer in 2021 if you can? How can you be a patriotic person if you're not going to look at the spirit of these laws and save the population, whether it's older people or younger people? The onus is on you. You've been educated in this area.
Exactly. I definitely will all, put in the daily routine what you suggested, and we would love to visit. I would love to visit and in New Delhi.
Please reach out to me. I'm on Insta, so you should just follow and send me a message if you come to Delhi, and we'd love to show you some of our work with some other people's work, and just chat with you just like that. So you're always welcome at Chintan, all of
Wonderful.
you.
It was lovely
You're most
talking to
welcome.
you, ma'am.
Beg your pardon?
It was lovely talking to you, ma'am.
Oh,
It was
likewise. Thank you for
session.
inviting me. It was really lovely. And please, if anyone wants to do anything, ping me. I'll try and guide you. And if that's not something I know, I'll try and find someone who can guide you.
Yeah.
So, I
We have
mean, let's
people
do
for
some good stuff.
we have few people who are the viewers, they're working on sustainable development, they're studying. So maybe like we could, connect them to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, don't stop believing that you can make change. I think if you stop believing, it would be a very sad day. And
Exactly.
most of you won't join environmental law firms or environmental NGOs. But whatever you do, I think you should fight for the planet. I think that's in whatever way that you can, and you should push yourself. You should never be in your zone of comfort. I think that's the first rule for all of us who care about sustainability in this era. We should never be in our comfort zone.
Yes, yes, definitely. I think the pandemic has also taught that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were definitely very far away from our comfort zone in 2020. It's been
Yes,
truly brutal.
indeed, indeed. So, all
Yes,
right.
it's
With
been
this, I'm
terrible.
gonna sum up the event. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a great session and very informative as well. And thank you to
You're
the
most
viewers.
welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.